Hi everyone, it's Zoe Kezia, and today I'm going to be talking about career shapeshifting. There was a time where I thought that I was going to be a professional tennis player. I was like, yes, Serena Williams, be afraid. Maybe not Serena because no one is touching her. Then of course, I had my YouTuber era. Then I dropped off the face of the earth and just pretended that whole thing didn't happen. Then I had my German and business management era because I was going to study architecture. Did not happen, missed my offer, was sad for all of 2 minutes, then realized that I didn't actually want to go to uni for 7 years. Then I had my art school era, went to Goldsmith, studied design. Then during art school era, became a model, did runway shows, cool campaigns, the whole 9 yards. Evolved once again, did a master's, entered my photography and videography era, and that takes us to the present day. I now work at a fashion magazine as a social video producer, still model sometimes, still do my own freelance photography and videography. But all of this is to say that when I was picking my A-levels, I had no idea that this is what I was going to be getting up to in my 20s. It kept me up at night because my mum was like, so what's the plan? What are you doing? What are you going to work as when you finish uni? This whole realm of vertical video is still relatively new, and yet somehow this convoluted path has led me here, and it's somewhere that I'm happy to be. For now. For some people, the whole picking something, having a plan, and just following all of the steps that go along with that plan works for them. But for some of us, we just need a bit more flexibility. We need to have a bit more faith and trust in the process, and we will eventually get there. But a lot of that process is us just stumbling around in the dark, hoping that we'll find the path with light. So here is everything that I've learned on this journey so far. So the first hurdle to jump over is how to actually identify what your passion is. This is difficult for people with lots of interests, like myself. The way that I figured it out for myself is by observing my feelings towards specific tasks that I'm doing. And it's hard because when I'm studying or doing something academic, like doing maths or physics, solving equations, stuff like that can also be fulfilling, but in a different way. I noticed that when I'm doing things that are creative, it's a very intense energy that I'm feeling sometimes. You know, when you're just locked in, when you're in a flow, you're in a rhythm, and you can just sit down for hours. Time is literally flying by, you're not noticing it, and you actually just feel like you're enjoying what you're doing, and it feels, I don't know, it might sound woo-woo, but it honestly just feels right. Whereas the intensity that I feel when I'm hyperfixated on a task, studying in maths, for example, you know those 10 markers that you had to do and you had to jump through so many hoops to get there. But when you actually figure it out step by step and you're like, oh my God, I am actually smart. That was satisfying, but yeah, in a very different way. I would be satisfied by the time I got to the end of it, but it definitely wasn't like this gives me actual life. And then when I actually complete a creative task, there's like a very deep sense of accomplishment, fulfillment, a big sense of, wow, that was great, I should do this more. Another thing that helped was also releasing all expectations about what the passion should be. I'm sure other people can feel this way sometimes, but sometimes you feel like your creative thing has to be art with a capital A. It has to be a drawing, it has to be a painting, it has to be something traditional and tangible that's recognized by a lot of people. Sometimes your passions are just not necessarily those things. My whole YouTube channel started because I am someone that enjoys making my revision notes look visually appealing. First of all, helped me when it came to actually studying, but second was also just a way to scratch that creative itch in my brain. And I thought it was really weird for a long time, but now I'm like, no. I was just actually confidently doing my own thing, and I'm proud of myself for that. And I also realized that writing is a passion, both in a creative sense and also in the physical sense of actually having pen to paper. That sensation for me is very satisfying. And that's something that I never thought that was a serious passion, if that makes sense, or something that would have any relevance to what I wanted to do later in life. What are those things that are very deeply, deeply fulfilling for you? These don't have to be things that are widely accepted as passions or things that lots of other people have as passions. These can be random things like, I don't know, you like making toast. I love tea, big tea enthusiast. That's why I've started doing these tea time videos, because I'm like, I like tea. I might as well just incorporate it into my videos somehow. What is this thing, or are these things that are deeply fulfilling for you, that pass time in a way that's actually invigorating instead of draining? And now for something more practical. How do you secure safety nets? A lot of people have passions that are completely unrelated to what they do for work, and they would love to be able to pursue those passions completely freely and not have to worry about paying bills, paying rent, etc., etc. And for the most part, a lot of people aren't really able to just dive straight into the deep end trying to make their passion a career. And also, not everyone wants to make their passion a career. Sometimes it can stay a passion by not being the thing that you're doing 24/7. That's one of the reasons why I've hopped back on YouTube, because I was like, I need my own creative video editing outlet, because editing videos for other people can get so draining. If you are someone that wants to go down the route of making money from your passion or what have you, safety nets are essential. Some people very much thrive with an all or nothing mindset. When the stakes are high, that is what drives them to make things happen. And to some degree, I feel like I am that kind of person. But now as time is passing, I'm just like, I don't actually need to be doing all of these theatrics sometimes with my life. I'm really starting to appreciate and try and adopt the principles of just making incremental progress over going for extremes and trying to get everything done really quickly and make things happen instantly. And often when you actually allow yourself to slow down and just do things completely on your terms, that's when you actually start to move the fastest, because there's none of this like frantic energy of trying to force your way through. Maybe before diving in, making sure you have a decent amount of savings just in case, you know, things are slow when you get started up. Having backup accommodation, let's say if you're moving city. Sometimes comfort and stability can be viewed as stagnation or complacency, but it doesn't always have to be. Sometimes being comfortable and stable can be strategic. It means you actually have time to think things through properly, make very informed decisions, weigh up all of your options, even have options. Some examples of safety nets could be staying in your job for, let's say, 6 months whilst you gradually build whatever this interest or passion is on the side. Going down to part-time work whilst you're also freelancing. Your safety net could be living with parents whilst you still can. And this leads nicely onto my next point of being resourceful. For a while, I was very much in a victim mindset, and I was always like, oh my God, I don't come from money. Industry that I'm trying to get into is racist. I never see anyone of my complexion, of my gender, doing the kinds of things that I think I want to do. But one thing that changed the game was just reframing my mindset around my limitations. So instead of being like, oh my God, this is a limitation, it's going to be 10 times harder for me to achieve something. Instead, taking the limitation and being like, okay, I don't have money, but what can I do instead with what I do have? So to give you some real world examples, digital cameras are not cheap. I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I actually started looking for secondhand cameras on Depop. And that's when I found my first full frame camera, which is a Sony a7S Mark I. The Sony a7S Mark I is a video camera, but it's also the very first version of this line. And there are 2 versions that follow it that are much newer. The only thing that I cared about was the fact that it was full frame, and also that it came with a lens, and all in all, it was £450. Another place that I was resourceful was with my masters. There are these things called scholarships. There was a scholarship specifically for Black students. So best believe I applied, and when I applied, I got said scholarship. So did my master's for free. And this is somewhere that I've played victim before, of being an ethnic minority and coming from a low income background and thinking, oh, you know, it's impossible for someone like me to get to, you know, far in this field. And I feel like it was doing that master's that really just cemented the whole, I don't have to see my limitations as limitations. I can see them as opportunities to actually find alternative ways of doing things. And I know I'm going on and on, but I really need to drive the point home, because the icing on the cake / the biggest resourcefulness, the video camera that I'm filming on right now is a £3,500 camera, or like thereabouts, maybe a bit less. But I was really starting to get into videos, and I saw the Sony FX3 and I was like, this looks like the camera for me. That price tag though, not for me. It was on my master's, which, remember, I'm doing for free. Came across this competition that was open to students. There was a competition for photography and there was a competition for filmmaking. And guess what the prize for the filmmaking competition was? It was a Sony FX3. And the theme was landscapes. And that's when I was like, okay, wait a minute. Landscapes? That's not my vibe at all. I forgot about it for a while, but then I was like, no, Zoe, don't do that thing. And then I set myself actually a challenge to not spend any money making it and to also not leave London making it. I was sitting in my communal garden where I live, and it's kind of got some urban jungle vibes. And I was like, maybe I could film the B-roll for this film in my garden. Then a few days later, I was on a walk around my area. A lot of the blocks of flats where I live have this very distinct look. And I was like, actually, I'd always seen them around and thought, oh yeah, the buildings look cool, but I don't really know why they look like that or why they were designed like that. So I went on Google, found out about my area and its history. And then I found out that my communal garden, which has this urban jungle thing going on, was actually a bomb shelter back in World War II. And I was like, interesting. The title Evolution of a Landscape came to mind. So I wrote a poem. I literally did all of this on the day of the deadline, mind you, entered it, forgot about it. And then a few months later, I got an email to say that I got first place. And then a month or so after that, I got sent the camera, a lens, and a £1,500 gift voucher to the camera shop. All because I didn't just dismiss this competition as something that I wouldn't be able to do because I wasn't a landscape filmmaker. By this point, I'm sure I must just sound like I'm bragging, but the point I'm really trying to drive home here is that your limitations don't have to be limitations. Creativity isn't just limited to your discipline or what your creative skill is. You can also be creative about how you navigate life and how you solve problems. So how do you stay open-minded and go with the flow without losing your mind? The way around this is to have something vague to be working towards. As you're working towards this vague thing, you have some kind of structure. It means you're actually doing things, and often as you do things, you learn as you go. You know, you'll be able to start identifying, actually don't really enjoy that, don't want to keep doing that, or I really enjoy this, I want to do more of this. And by pursuing something, you're likely to meet people, or they can even present you with opportunities that are relevant to where you're trying to get to. Things will often snowball after you've started to take the first steps and after you've started to just do things. Being comfortable with the fact that you don't know and that, you know what, it's okay. For example, when I was studying German and business management, I knew that that was not the vibe at all. I had researched quite a few courses and I was like, oof, I honestly could do anything at this point, but which one am I gonna pick? I know that I want to move from an academic degree to a creative one. So let's just focus on finding a creative degree to do and actually get onto the course. I applied for a handful through clearing, and that's when I got into Goldsmiths. I'm really, really, really glad that I did that course and I actually had the opportunity to try out all the different kinds of design at the very beginning and then figure out as I went on, like, okay, it's photography and video that I'm the most interested in, and this is where my passion lies. And I'm still glad that I had the opportunity to do things like textiles, where we learn how to bind books, because that's something that I'm desperate to get back to at some point in the near future. And finally, how to do things with intention. I would argue that there is no such thing as wasting time, particularly in the beginning stages, because it's in the doing that you realize what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And it's by doing that you realize, okay, this is working and this yields results. This thing that I'm doing is not working and it does not yield results. You can read as many books as you like, you can watch as many experts talking about this thing as you like, and that will get you to a point, and it's definitely useful for acquiring knowledge. Ultimately, the thing that ties it all together is the actual doing and learning through doing. I think it's actually quite nice being in that beginning stage and not having any pressure on you. I remember earlier on in my journey, I did not like the idea of assisting people because I was like, I don't want to be anyone's assistant. I want to be assisted. I do now really, really, really appreciate just any opportunity that I have to be on set, and I will take it where I can. So going back to the whole having a vague goal thing, once you have that vague goal in place, just do the things that feel logical to you in that time, because even if you ask for advice from someone, often people are always going to be speaking from their own experience or what they've heard other people say, which might work for a lot of people, but it might not work for you. So obviously take notes and take what's useful from that advice, but also apply it to your situation and be like, the advice says go to uni, but I honestly can't really afford to be doing that. I'm gonna work at Tesco a few days a week, but then spend the rest of the time just going out and taking pictures of people on the street or something like that, and I'm just gonna start there. Don't be afraid of wasting time, because that wasted time is always a learning opportunity. I have done so many freelance jobs where I've just been like, did I actually have to do that? No. Did I want to do that? No. Was I broke? Yes. So did I actually have to do it? Yes. Now I know that when people are talking a certain way in the initial emails, that I should be running the other way. If people don't mention budget in the first email, I'm like, bye. Another one that's kind of sneaky is that when someone's trying to sell you a job, like, oh, I just need someone to do 6 quick and easy edits for me, only 15 seconds long, failing to mention that they have 6 hours of video to go through to make that 15-second video. And it's like, well, if it's gonna take me over a day to go through all the footage, it's not exactly quick or easy, is it? No. And that's fine. And that's when you start learning to have boundaries. That's when you start learning to weed out unserious candidates or clients that are just gonna suck you dry. I think the financial pressure is often the reason that you get tied into that kind of thing. And it can also be an opportunity to realize, okay, maybe I should actually be raising my rates here because this is ridiculous. And to tie everything up all together, in terms of knowing what actions and steps you should be taking, I think going by your intuition or what that feeling of passion feels like, I think you can use that sometimes to guide you in your decision making. There have been a lot of jobs that have felt kind of random to me that I'm like, should I be doing this? I don't know if this is going to progress me forward, but there's just been something that's like, even though it feels random, it does sound like it's kind of fun, or maybe the rate is nice, and I've ended up doing the job and meeting someone on that job, or just managed to get some other opportunity from doing it. So it's worked out in the end. So I definitely advise using that gut feeling and intuition to guide you when making decisions on what steps you should be taking. I've been doing lots of sit-down videos recently because things are about to get very hectic at work. But that's also a good thing because it means I'm gonna have interesting things to vlog. So expect to see some vlogs throughout February. But in the meantime, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.